fine tune your approach. So I'm always trying to figure out exactly what it is that works the best for me.
Right.
And, sometimes that can change a little bit. And, what works for your best running friend or your, running coach or whoever doesn't necessarily work for you. So I've been working a lot on figuring out what that looks like for me.
You are listening to the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast with your host, Eric Logan. No Gimmicks, Just Sweat is dedicated to hearing the journeys and unique stories behind an athlete's training and what drives them. Get inspired to own your life and make the impossible possible. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please take a few seconds to rate the show and drop me a review. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of No Gimmicks, Just Sweat. And today we welcome back runner and registered dietitian Jackie Kirchner to the show. Jackie, how are you doing?
I'm really well today. Thanks, Eric. How are you?
I am wonderful. Wonderful, beautiful day outside.
It's gorgeous here too. Hot, but it's
good.
Gorgeous.
So that means summer's coming.
It's definitely on the way. And last week, I didn't think that was possible because one day I woke up and it was 31 degrees with a wind chill of like 26. I was like, but it's May.
And Jackie is back today. If you missed her the first time, she was on episode 37, and she's come back today to kind of share her experience with the 2022 Boston Marathon.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So you have qualified 4 times for Boston, and you've ran it, 3 times? I think 2 physically and 1 virtually.
That's correct.
All right, so let's kind of let's kind of talk about the first time you ran Boston.
Okay.
Just to kind of think about it, was that your first marathon, or had you had a couple of marathons under your belt before you got to it?
I think so the first time I ran Boston in person was 2019. And I think that was number 6 for me, 5 or 6. I'm going to go 6. So I had run marathons and I had qualified for it at Grandma's Marathon in 2018. So, and when I crossed the finish line of Grandma's, I knew I had a really good buffer to get into Boston. And I was really excited because it was a huge PR for me. So I was like, I'm going to Boston. This is awesome. Yeah. So it was many months of looking forward to it since Grandma's is always in June and Boston is in April. So I had whatever that is, like almost 10 months to prepare.
Okay. And when you ran it, do you feel that you were prepared, or once you finished, you kind of said like, oh, I wasn't ready for it?
So that year, I do think that I was prepared. So I'd come off of a couple of marathon training blocks. And so my training, I think, was pretty solid. But I will say that training for it was really difficult that year. So I live in Northern Illinois. And that year it was super icy here. Like there was a couple of inches of ice on a lot of the outdoor like bike paths or running paths, which made running outside really treacherous. And then of course no one was like shoveling their sidewalks. And so just being able to train outdoors was difficult. And of course, when you're training in January, February, March, the weather can be quite a bit different than, than it is in springtime. And in Boston, it can be kind of anything. Like you don't know what to expect.
Right.
So, I would say for the weather, I was not prepared for the conditions, just given the training conditions I that that I had to deal with throughout the training cycle.
Okay, so even though you weren't prepared for that first one, you still wanted to do it again, and you qualified again for it.
Yeah. I kind of wanted a little bit of redemption. It didn't go quite as well as I wanted. It really didn't go badly when I think about it, but I wanted to go back and, well, I had fun anyway, but I also wanted a little bit of redemption.
Of course, you know, even when you could have done better, even you have like, I can do better. Is that whole thing like, yeah, I can shave a little bit of time off. I can do better.
Yes. Yeah. I kind of had that afterwards.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's like a marathoner or like an athlete like us. You know, there's always another race like, ooh, if this would have been a little different, or if I would have done that differently, I wonder what would happen then. And I can do better next time. It's very addictive.
Yes, it is highly addictive. Highly addictive. So,
Yes.
so let's go from running that first Boston Marathon to running the one this year. So,
Okay.
what changes did you make from running that first one to preparing for running this one?
That's a great question. So going into 2019, I was actually like physically very healthy. Whereas going into this year, I had dealt with a hip strain last summer and fall that took me away from running for, I don't know, it's like several weeks. So, in my approach to training for this year, I really just wanted to be able to finish and finish strong and not feel like my leg was going to fall off or my hip was going to fall off. So I was pretty conservative in my training. I didn't do, I built up my endurance, but I really didn't work on speed so much. Didn't
Okay.
do a ton of track workouts or tempo workouts. So the goal was finish, but really, actually, the goal was just have as much fun as possible. So that was kind of my approach through the training, was like be able to finish the distance and enjoy it. So I kind of feel like I had to mentally prepare myself for that as well, because we tend to get competitive with ourselves, and just I didn't want to cross the finish line having had a ton of fun and then beat myself up for being like, oh, well, this wasn't your fastest, or, you've done better before. So it was physical, but it was also mental, being like, nope, you're going to go, you're going to have fun, you're going to enjoy the heck out of it. And that's that. The end.
Well, that's the way you should approach it. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you could be very competitive, but you should have fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I know me, I don't get a paycheck from racing.
No, I don't either. If anything, like I might get an extra little medal from a teeny little 5K or something like that, but no, there's no paychecks coming my way.
Right. So, running a race is, so the fun is.
Yes. And so, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So I guess that was the paycheck. That was going to be the paycheck, and it was a ton of fun. Spoiler alert, it was fun.
All right. So did you, given that you're a registered dietitian, did you make any dietary changes from that first Boston to this Boston?
I did, actually. The way I fueled and hydrated was quite a bit different. Now I feel like every long run or training cycle is an opportunity to practice what you're going to do on race day and to fine tune your approach. So I'm always trying to figure out exactly what it is that works the best for me.
Right.
And, sometimes that can change a little bit. And, what works for your best running friend or your, running coach or whoever doesn't necessarily work for you. So I've been working a lot on figuring out what that looks like for me. And in 2019, I know I didn't drink enough water or get enough electrolytes in. So I think I actually ended up pretty dehydrated. So with this go round, I was much more intentional about getting enough fluids and electrolytes in. And I, on purpose, like went out and I got Gatorade Endurance because that's what they were going to have on course. And I practiced drinking that throughout my training
Okay.
because, you're not at a major races like Boston, you're not allowed to have a vest or anything big or bulky. And I knew a little handheld wasn't going to carry me through the whole race.
Right.
So yeah, I practiced with Gatorade Endurance because that's what was going to be available on course. And to at least as for part of my fluids and electrolytes anyway. I did other stuff I also took gels along the way, but yeah, I was just much more intentional about making sure I got enough and met my needs. And I did definitely feel much better throughout the whole race this time than I did last time.
Okay, and that's interesting you say that because generally at a race, you might not know exactly what they're gonna have on the course,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that okay they're gonna have Gatorade there, that gives you the opportunity to kind of practice and kind of see how your system works with it. Most races you're like, okay, they might have this, they might have that. It depends on who's sponsor or who gives them the best deal. But
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like a great plan. So that's something you don't hear much of.
Yeah, I think anytime if you know what's going to be on course, practice with that unless you plan on carrying your own. But also know that a lot of major races won't let you do that. So either you're going to need to have people in the crowd that are willing to switch out handheld bottles for you, or you're going to have to come up with some sort of alternative. But, um, you know, Boston, while it's a super fun course, it's not the most spectator friendly. Like, it's not easy for people to go from point to point to point.
Right.
So I knew that like switching out handheld bottles with people in the crowd wasn't going to be an option. So I looked it up. All right, Gatorade Endurance it is. That's what I'm practicing with, and that's what I'm going to use on race day.
Okay. And how many weeks did you prepare for running this one?
Oh, probably somewhere between 16 and 20. Kind of feel like once you get into a groove of running and training for things, it's just kind of almost continuous. You kind of go from one block to another to another. Right. So I would say I was like getting back into running late last year, and then come January, I was like, okay, now it's time to really build up the endurance and get that up to speeds to be able to finish 26.2 miles without, wanting to die or cry.
All right, so let's give your recap of the race, and just kind of break it down between the first, 13 mile, 0.1 mile, and then to the second part.
Okay.
Let's kind of go into, you get there, you get to the starting line. So how was that experience getting to the starting line? Because, this year, I think if I'm correct, this year was like the first time they've had a big full race since the whole pandemic and everything.
Yeah, it was the first time they held it more or less normally with like regular like wave start times instead of last fall it was staggered.
Yes.
Just kind of get off the bus and go. from what I understand. So this was the first in-person regular start since 2019 on Patriots Day. So it's kind of a big deal for the people of Boston and spectators and people that were running as well, because it had been, like 3 years since it had been held, quote unquote, normally.
Right, exactly.
So my husband actually qualified for Boston as well. So we ended up going down to the Commons area where you catch the buses together, and he caught an earlier bus than me, and I got to meet up with a friend. Her name is Kelly. Shout out to Kelly. I met her through Instagram, and so we ended up riding the bus together out to the start. And then when I got to the start, then I met up with some other friends that I had met through Instagram, and got to hang out in the athletes village with them before going to the start line. So that was really cool, just different this year, being able to really meet people that are part of the community that you've known and you've met, but you've never actually met.
Right.
So I would say that was a super fun part of this year. I haven't even gotten to the first half, but there you go. That's a little preview of like just even getting to the start line. Oh, and the weather was great like that morning, so it felt, I don't know, it just the energy in the athletes, and the weather, it was a positive experience just even getting to that point.
Well, that's a sign of something that, if you get up there, the weather's great, you're kind of socializing with people, it's kind of helping you to relax and, get ready to get to the starting line.
Yeah, it definitely helps get you in a right headspace.
Yes, definitely. All right, so you're at the starting line, the race starts. How did that first half go for you?
It went really well. So it was pretty conservative, actually. I didn't intend to full out race Boston. Like I said, the number one goal was to have fun. And then I really wanted to just race smart. I knew I didn't want to, phone it in or, just, I wanted to work hard, but I didn't want to full out race. So I ended up running the first half with two other people, again, Instagram friends. One of them is a fellow dietitian in Oklahoma. Her name is Lisa, and then her friend Lauren. So we all ran the first half together, and that was really fun. I've never really run a race like that with a crowd, so to speak.
Okay.
With you, I mean, usually on race day, it's like it's you against yourself, and you're kind of in your own world. So it was fun to be able to just kind of like chat a little bit, take it all in. I mean, we were working hard, but we weren't full out racing, any of us. So it was nice to be able to, like, I would point out something or they would point out something, or we saw some people on the course. Like Tommy Rivs was there, and so one of the girls fangirled there a little bit. So it was just it was kind of cool to just experience it in a little bit different way than how I've experienced a marathon before, because it was more fun versus serious.
Okay. Was there any part of that first half that was challenging to you? Or or was having people that you ran with made you kind of like, oh, that was supposed to be the challenge? That was easy.
I think one of the challenging things was it was crowded. Like, it was just busy.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of space, which, I mean, it's a major marathon. There's a lot of people running it. So I think I kind of forgot how congested in a way some of these things can be.
Right.
So that was a little bit challenging. I'm really, really bad at drinking out of race cups. Like every time I choke, like I have to really slow down or walk. So there were multiple times where I was like, you ladies just go ahead, let me walk through this station. Otherwise, it's either going to end up in my lungs or on my clothes and not where I need it to be. So I need to practice using race day cups.
Well, I think everybody, if you are a runner, I think you can say that we all have had that almost choking,
Yeah.
or getting water all over you, or spilling it, or water going down the side, or going up your nose. We've had that experience with the race.
Yeah, I am glad I'm not alone. It is a skill that people practice, and it was a takeaway. I was like, okay, I've gotta practice doing this. Kind of a silly challenge, but no, that was a legit challenge for me. I was like, the first time it did go down the wrong pipe, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna spend the next couple of minutes coughing, and then I'm gonna keep on going on my merry way.
Yeah, oh yeah. Believe me, I've had a time where I like, okay, I'm gonna just throw it in my mouth and missed my mouth altogether. It went straight to my nose.
Yep, it happens.
So I'm like, yeah, I can't do that anymore.
Nope.
All right, you've completed the first half. How are you feeling physically?
Physically, I was feeling pretty strong.
Okay.
There's a little bit of tiredness there, but just because it's 13 miles in. But by this point, I'd gotten into a little bit more of a physical groove, a little bit more of a mental groove. I was enjoying it. I was having fun. And I think actually there was a point, I think somewhere around before the halfway point, where I had some hot spots on my feet, and I was real worried that they were going to get worse and worse. But they did. Yeah, like it just kind of felt like I don't know, like maybe there was some rubbing on like the ball of my foot or something like that. So it felt really hot. So I was trying not to focus on that, because I knew if I did, then that would be all I could think about, and then that would be distracting and would bring the fun notch down quite a bit. But luckily it didn't really get worse, and I kind of was able to focus on other things and still have fun. But I think that would probably have been the most physical discomfort, was just I had a little bit of worries that my feet weren't gonna yell at me or scream at me the whole race.
Okay. All right. So now you're starting the second half of the race.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of when, most people say they kind of start feeling it then. This is when the mental, challenges come into play. So how was that for you?
Well, I think this is where it helped to have other people there. So around the halfway point, my friend Lisa dropped back. So so it was just me and another gal, Lauren, and but we worked together through the rest of the race, which was amazing. So that, keeps up your spirits and kind of keeps your mind off of some of the like aches and pains, or even just the daunting idea that, oh, I'm at mile 16, but there's still 10 miles to go. So the crowd support was amazing. I mean, the towns were great, but it just kept it felt like it kept getting better and better. And I think it really helped that the weather was really good, and it had been so long since people had been out on Patriots Day to cheer. So that helped quite a bit with the mental side of things. And then physically, I was hydrating well, I was fueling well. I never even got close to the point where I felt like I was going to hit the wall. I never got to this point where I thought that I was going to be unable to take in any more fluids or fuel. Sometimes when you're, working really, really hard or you get to a certain level, it's really hard to get that stuff down. So, which of course makes the rest of the race that much harder because then you're running low. So I never got to that point. So I was really, really happy and proud that I had, that I had done that, and it felt really good. Like I felt strong. A negative split the race. So, and that's even with some like stops for photos in the last 3 miles, I think. So yeah, I felt good.
Okay, so did you feel satisfied with your performance and your finishing time and everything with this race?
I did. I mean, it definitely was nowhere close to my PR or even my top couple of races, but at the end of the day, like I feel really good about it because I felt good at the end. I had fun. I smiled. I enjoyed the crowd and the company of the people that I was with. I feel like I ran really, really smart, given that, I was able to negative split it, even though those Newton Hills come in the second half of the race. And, to just finish and not be like, oh, I want to like cut my legs off, or oh my god, I want to barf, or oh my gosh, like I can barely get myself over the finish line. None of that happened. Like I fueled well, I hydrated well, I had fun, I smiled, so if I looked at just the time, I think I would be really disappointed, but there were so many positive things that came out of that race that had nothing to do with the time on the clock.
Right, exactly. And sometimes you just have to do that because, like, you know what? It's more about the experience and how I felt after the experience than what's on my watch.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so many things can go wrong or awry in a race and so many of them are outside of our control, things like weather or, whatever it is. To just pin everything on your watch, the time, you're setting yourself up to feel really bad.
Right, exactly. And again, we don't get a paycheck for this.
Right, exactly. We're just normal people who pay a lot of money to do it, actually.
Right, exactly. We don't get paid to do this.
Like definitely not.
Fun is our payment. Fun and experience. That's what we get paid.
Yep.
All right. So here's the important question. What was your first meal after?
I'm going to tell you snack first. I think
Okay.
by the time I got like the food bag at the finish, and then I went to go find family. I was like, all right, I need to eat something. And it was just like salt. I needed salt. So it was like the potato chips. I was just like, I don't think I could put the potato chips in my mouth fast enough. It was just like, I need salt. And this is, even though I was much more intentional about getting the electrolytes in this time, I still like really needed that salty snack. So I had potato chips and then some other snacks. And when I got back to the Airbnb, it was like all the pretzels in my mouth. It was just like just could not get enough bland, salty food that was crunchy. It was amazing. But meal. Okay, what did I have? I went with the Boston theme. We went to Legal Seafoods, and I had clam chowder and a crab cake. And then I had the most delicious bowl of ice cream. Like, it was glorious. I'll talk way more about the ice cream. And there's nothing wrong with the meal. It was good. I'm not from that part of the country, so I didn't grow up with things like crab cakes and clam chowder, and it was good, but most of the time what I go for is after a big race is something like a burger and fries, even though I don't eat a lot of meat, but it's just like something really hearty like that.
Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to hear. I was like, okay, she had to go for a burger or pizza or something.
No,
But
I went full
chowder.
New England and I had clam chowder, and I no regrets, but if I would keep that meal for a different day, just for me personally, because it's not something I ever crave.
Right.
But that ice cream was delicious. So.
What type? What flavor?
So it's from JP Licks, which I believe is a Boston favorite, and I think that I had a salted caramel something or other, which is I love salted caramel flavored stuff. So.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So, would you run Boston again?
Yeah, definitely. It's a fun race. It's fun for multiple reasons. I mean, there is it's old and historic. It's got great crowd support. It's, got a lot of people that come from all over the world, which is exciting. Um, you get to meet a lot of people that, but don't really know. Again, like if you've met them through social media, because I think the run community and social media is so wonderful.
Right.
It's just, very supportive and awesome. So to bring that to real life is really exciting. But then there's also stuff like all the events that happen because it is a major marathon. Like you can see all kinds of pro runners or professional athletes. You can go to talks, you can go to shakeout events. Just it's a whole experience that whole weekend, which just makes it really fun and exciting.
Okay. And is there anything that you would change, as far as preparing, or anything that you did that you look back now and kind of go, ugh, yeah, I could have did this better?
Maybe I think with my training, like I was very conservative with it, and looking back, I probably could have been a bit more aggressive with maybe some speed training, just to get a little bit more speed in my legs. But I don't want to focus on it because then I don't want to look back with regret. I do think that it was the weekend of, I was real busy on Saturday, and as much fun as all of the events were, I probably would have like toned it down even a smidge more, just because it kind of felt like it was event to event to event. And I got up early to go to some of them, um, and that was okay, but it was also a little tiring, and I felt I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. So by the time the end of the day came around, I was like, all right, please leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm overstimulated.
Yes, I can understand that.
Yeah.
All right. Any last things you want to kind of share about Boston, or anything that any advice you can give to anyone who might want to prepare for Boston to eventually run it themselves?
Yes. So train for hills. They're there. Don't go out too fast, or it's so easy to start fast on that course because you start straight downhill, and if you go out too fast, you're gonna really be hurting by the end. If you're training for it, or if you want to train for it, well, if you want to train for it, just keep going after it. Keep trying. Just keep trying. here's me cheerleading for you. I want you to try it and go for it. And even if you come up short, I still think you're amazing for going for it. But train on hills, practice with what's on course, make sure you fuel and hydrate correctly. That's my little dietitian plug. It really does make a difference though. I mean, no way I would have felt as strong at the end if I hadn't done that well. So, and then just enjoy the process. At the end of the day, your family, your friends, they're going to love you whether you finish in 2 hours and 45 minutes or 5 hours and 45 minutes, or if, you come up short. Like the time is not the end all be all. Just enjoy the process and have fun.
Yes, that is so true. Again, Jackie, it's been a pleasure talking with you again.
Yes.
Thanks for coming back and sharing your experience.
Of course.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm glad you had me back because it's fun conversations with you.
Yes, always. And everyone, go check out episode 37 if you haven't already, to learn more about Jackie. And again, thank you. I really appreciate you coming back.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. This was good fun. I'm happy anytime.
All right, cool. All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each week. If you enjoyed today's show, please support us by subscribing, rating, and reviewing this show wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to tell your friends about the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast, so we can continue to have awesome conversations with everyday athletes just like you. Until next time, have an amazing week.